Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Sharon.
Let's continue our lovely imposter syndrome chat that we're having. So just
Hold
to give a
on,
bit.
Siri wants to join in.
Oh, brilliant! group conversation. Ask Siri, is she an imposter?
Siri, are you an imposter? I don't have an answer for that. Is there something else I can help you with?
So definitely.
We do shit messily.
Absolutely. So you and I were having a conversation around my upcoming workshop on imposter syndrome and thought it might be beneficial to record our chats because there was all kinds of nuggets of gold coming up. So I think I'll start off with what my definition of imposter syndrome is, and let's take it from there and see how you feel about it. But for me, what I would call imposter syndrome in my personal perspective would be thinking other people know something that I don't know. So how it showed up for me was when I would start something new, even if I was starting at the same time as other people, I felt like somehow they had an advantage over me or they knew a bit more than me. So it would be a little bit like putting people on a pedestal. And when I was researching imposter syndrome for the talks that I've done, one of the visuals that came up was like feeling like you know this amount and everybody else knows all of this, and that definitely resonated with me. And I find it so interesting to have this conversation because it presents differently in men and women, and it presents differently in almost everybody I've spoken to. So I'd love for you to share what we were chatting about in, how it showed up for you.
So my entire career was HR, and I'd made it all the way up to HR director. And I think my worst imposter syndrome was when I was a director, right? Which is insane. And funny what you say there about, people knowing more. I did not step into being a director, as in like, obviously I was a director, I was doing the role, but as in my mind hadn't stepped into it. Therefore, anybody that had like the title of director, I saw as being like these huge, amazing, like incredible people that, knew it all, had their shit together, and were way more confident than what I was. Inside, I was dying. Inside, I was dying. And I was only saying to you as well yesterday, my team used to always say to me, you're so calm, you're so collected, nothing ever bothers you. I want to be like you. And I'm like, okay. Okay, great. We're putting up the best wall ever. But you know what though, right? In all honesty, what that created was two completely different humans, which is not healthy. Not healthy at all. It's the one that I portrayed that was fake.
Yeah.
And then what was really going on inside, which was I was dying. I was like a little child going, somebody please rescue me. I feel like I'm drowning, not even sinking. I feel like I'm drowning. And couldn't correlate the two, as in, Joanne, you're a HR director. You have a team of 18 people underneath you. Yet you see people with director title and think they're better than you. What?
I know.
What?
It's like we would like to interrupt this program to bring you a reality check. Exactly. Isn't it insane? And when you and I met, and I was talking about the type of coach I wanted to be, and because I'd just come out of corporate, and we were brainstorming a bit, and I was like, but I don't know, how comfortable I would feel coaching directors. And you're like, I was a director, Sharon. Could you imagine coaching me? I'm one of your, I would be along the lines of your ideal client. And it's just so mind-blowing to me. And the more and more that I'm having this conversation with people, what fascinates me is it's not the people that you look at and from the outside look that they're not sure what they're doing. It's the people who look like they have everything together. And I heard that people were like, from the outside, I had everything running in military precision.
Yeah.
I was in control. I knew what I was doing. I was on the go. So the perception from the world outside was, she got it together. There's no way. And interestingly enough, how I now realize imposter syndrome would have held me back was I didn't have imposter syndrome once I played small. Once I stayed in the role that I was in and perfected it and, made certain that no one could ever say she doesn't do a good job, because I would have died, So when I now look at that, I realize that that was a type of imposter syndrome because I held myself back thinking, well, okay, I'm 100% confident in what I'm doing, so I'm going to just stay here. And I didn't step into my potential at all because And I didn't even realize I had imposter syndrome. And all the conversations I'm having when I describe it to people, they're going, oh, that was me. Or that is me. Yeah, totally. I just find it fascinating. And I also think a lot of people in the workplace don't like to talk about it because you wouldn't want to be in a room of your peers and go, am I the only one who doesn't know what I'm doing? In case everybody went, yeah, you are. You absolutely are the only person who doesn't know what. And then you feel the shame. And I think the more that we take the lid off this and have the conversation and understand that doubt and insecurity and not having everything together is actually human, and it's how we all operate. I think that's so beneficial because everybody out there is going, you know, perhaps they would look at something and go, Joanne has her stuff together, Sharon has her stuff together. I could never do what those people do. And you and I, a few short years ago, were there going, I would love to do what they do, and I could never do it. And now we're going, anyone could do it. Everybody's the same.
Let me explain my career, right? Because I think this will probably resonate with a lot of people. I always just, prior to this, right, I always describe my career as I was very lucky. Oh my goodness, I in the right place at the right time, right? So I'm going to explain it to you because I'm sure this is going to land with some people. I had tunnel vision, right? And all I was doing was HR. I didn't ask whether it was for me, didn't ask if it was what I wanted to do. I was told, I'm a good girl. Oh, I'm great at it. I was told that HR was for me. That's it, done, right? Didn't get enough points in my leaving cert, right? I just want to plant all these seeds here.
Yeah.
Didn't get enough points in my leaving cert, and I went, screw that, I'm doing it anyway. How was I going to do it, right? So I went and I did like a post-leaving cert course in like a kind of like secretarial studies. Nailed that. Boom. I'm like, I'm doing that, right? That wasn't a question because to me, I was able to do that, right? Because I used to play with typewriters when I was younger and all those kind of fun things, right?
Yeah.
Done. Loved writing reports. Then I had to move to the next level, which was going and do a certificate before I could even get to do my degree, right? So I had hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
This is your one with imposter syndrome, right? To jump through. Determined to do it, had to get a certain average. Could I also point out I had a baby in between? Was on my own, working with a baby, going to college, child in crash.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome, right? So I then walked into a job on a temporary contract with Lidl. We all know Lidl, right?
Yeah.
I was so lucky to get that. So lucky to get that. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way, but that was the time that I used. Was like, I was so lucky to get that. They then kept me on. Lidl were only in the country at the time. Were they even in? I don't even think they were in 18 months actually when I joined them. It was very new. And there was no HR department at the time. There was none. There was like payroll, and then there was like another section, and you know, between the two of them, they did a bit of HR stuff. And then a HR role was created. I was like the natural choice for that, obviously, because my whole background was like and I was eager, I was hungry, it was easy to mold. So stepped into that job. Wasn't I lucky? Enter imposter syndrome. That job was beautiful. There's certain levels in Lidl that you go to from a management perspective. And I had always said I didn't want to go past here. In my mind, I had this image of what it actually meant to go past there. And all I saw, my interpretation of people that were at that level was they were miserable, right? I don't want that. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to be going home feeling sick every day. What happened? There was only 4 of us doing these roles, and we developed it so much that they transformed it into that management position because that's what we had created. Still Joanne sitting in imposter syndrome going, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. Even though it was being handed to me in a plate, same time going, amn't I very lucky? My mindset was not, you're already doing this. There's nothing different. You are already doing this. You are in the circle of people that are doing this. You're not miserable. You love your job. What the hell? That wasn't correlating in my brain at all. I was there for 10 years. And for my entire time, I was like, am I very lucky? Am I very lucky? Am I blessed with the career that I've had? Nothing to do with me and my skills and, you know, the input or the effort.
And your hard work,
or the relationships that I've got. Nothing to do with that. Wasn't I very lucky? I then decided it was time to move on. And what came straight into my mind, how the hell am I going to find a job? And the worst thing is, right, and I say this with all honesty, I had a great salary when I was in Lidl and had incredible benefits. Obviously, I'd been there for 10 years. So I'd worked, I'd built it. Straight away. not even just me, but even like my colleagues around me were, well, how are you going to find a job on the same money with the same benefits? Right. And I know we've all heard this, because I always remember I was the guinea pig. I found out afterwards to go off and see, could you get another job? And then people started to follow suit. I didn't know that at the time. But anyway, because it was just coming out of the recession and people were like, you're crazy. I walked straight into another job. And I swear to God, within 5 minutes of me being in the door on day one, my title was changed to manager. I'm like, right, I've never managed a team of people before.
Yeah.
Enter imposter syndrome. Didn't matter that they thought I could do it, or that, my skills.
Yeah.
No, what? Sorry? I have a team of teams? Are you crazy? What happened then? That role evolved into operations manager, and then like head of HR, director, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I still remember sitting at the boardroom table with my peers, like my colleagues who are the same, right?
Yeah.
Sitting going, I feel physically sick. I don't want to be here. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Please don't ask me a question. I don't know. Oh my God, the responsibility of this feels awful. All of that kicked in. It was horrendous. Again, the story that I told myself was, my boss was happy to have me there because I was very operationally driven. I was great at generating ideas to be able to fix a problem. That is my speciality, right?
Yeah.
Which meant he could step away and do his own stuff. But I had created that story that's the only reason why I'm here. That's the only reason why I have my title.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm getting pay increases is because of that. What? No, I don't think so. But I didn't know that at the time. I then left that I was there for a good 5 years. I left because I was looking for a better work-life balance. Work-life balance starts from in here. It started from physical location, all that stuff. Anyway, we know better now.
Yeah.
And I moved to a beautiful consultancy company. Swear to God, imposter syndrome kicked in again. Do they think I'm not doing a good enough job? Do they think, because I was here and they were in the UK, right? And when I say the most beautiful company to work for, oh my goodness, between clients and the team, you couldn't have asked for nicer. Just was such an incredible experience. But it really showed me, okay, HR isn't for me, right? Like if I wasn't listening before, I couldn't really avoid it then. I had everything I'd asked for and I was still unhappy, But in terms of imposter syndrome, I still was like, oh my God, do they think I'm doing nothing? Like, because obviously I'm not physically in the environment with them. This is somebody who's like HR, who knows the value of giving people space and, all of that. Like, oh my God, did they think that I'm not doing enough? I'm like, are they questioning what I'm doing? Should I be doing more? What?
I know. And one thing I just want to touch on, because in case it goes out of my mind, this perception, because I heard this in the job that I was in, that I ultimately managed to exit because I burned and crashed out of it. But I heard this all the time. And I think a lot of us have this experience. You have the Sunday night jitters, and then you go in on the Monday full of dread and you don't want to go in. And you're like, that's it, I'm definitely, or you go back after Christmas or after holiday, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm going out. And then slowly you talk yourself out of it by the Friday, because you're like, oh, sure, it's Friday, I don't want to think about it. And then you hear this type of scenario that you're talking about, oh, sure, it's great money. And isn't it great money? And like, you have great benefits and there's probably nothing else out there. And our imposter syndrome, our lack of self-worth, our fear totally kicks in and is fed. So I love what you're saying about it coming from the inside out. And it also resonates with me. And I think that's why so many people get stuck in the imposter syndrome cycle, because they let other people's perception of what's available to them influence them. And then they hold themselves back. Exactly what I did. I had that scenario knocking around in my head for so long. Yeah, it is good money and it's, and it's a monthly and I can rely on it. And until you end up being suffocated. But I just wanted to come to that point, that exactly when you don't have from the inside out what you need, then you pick up what other people are saying. And then that just feeds into the imposter syndrome, because you feel like, well, I'm obviously not that great because other people are saying, you never get this money again. This is great money. And sure, this is a great job. And weren't you lucky to get it? Crazy.
I know. When I was leaving Lidl, that was I'm going to be honest, I wasn't afraid about getting a job, right? I was determined to leave. I was done, right? And I wasn't necessarily afraid to get a job. I didn't, but how this went in my mind, right? Again, imposter syndrome. I had worked out how much minimum I needed to earn. So I'm going to use the words dumbing myself down significantly.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see my self-worth or my value or any of that. And before I handed in my notice in Lidl, again, because just had people constantly in your ears, and I'm a single parent.
Yeah.
All I was hearing was, how are you going to pay your bills? I'm sorry, leave me the F alone. Like my sanity, health, and all of that matters.
Yeah.
I started looking for signs. I created a situation. I obviously didn't create the situation, but a situation presented itself that I then created that as to be, that's a sign for me to leave, rather than just actually going, I don't want to be here anymore. Bye.
Yeah.
It's like, no. And like that's insanity to do that. But I want to also say, I burnt out 3 times before I stopped and went, okay, so HR isn't for me. I have been receiving this repeatedly.
Yeah.
I am, for whatever reason, sticking to my guns on this because I'm a stubborn woman.
Yeah.
Stubborn control freak is what I am. Stubborn as anything, and wasn't willing to look beyond that because of imposter syndrome. Because of that impacted my health. I'm going to be really honest. I used to come home from work and drink every single solitary night. Not get drunk, but drink. So that I could sleep, so that I didn't have to have the thoughts. Because that Sunday night drive didn't start for me on a Sunday. It started on a Saturday. Sometimes if I was on call, it could start for me for the entire week and I didn't get a break at all. I don't feel like I ever switched off. You will not switch off if you're not in a career that lights you up. There's
100%.
a difference between it. Like doing what I do now, I love. If I get a message, I pick and choose whether or not I answer it, or whether or not it's within my bandwidth to do. Versus feeling I have to. That's an awful feeling to have, is I have to, I should.
Absolutely.
These two. And it creates, oh my goodness, never mind what it does to your mind, what it creates in your body is insane. And nobody needs to live like that. But until people recognize it, you are not alone.
Oh, yes. And I also want to, because another thing came into my mind was, I heard this limitation because when my children were young, it was like, you just want to get a little job. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Just a little job. And I was like, no, I don't want a little job. But then when I went into the not little job, because I loved working, I ended up being burnt out because I didn't want to be like, it was kind of like, well, I chose this, so now I'm going to suck it up. So again, we'll go down the rabbit hole of boundaries, of self-worth and all that. But it's astonishing. It again comes back to exactly as you're saying, you eventually got the message about burnout and went, want something different, do something different. And also, by the way, this is what I want. This is my life and this is what I choose for myself, as opposed to societal pressures. And I think as women, we hear all those overt and covert messages about what we should be and how we should be showing up. And I think that's why the conversation isn't had out in the plain sight of day, because people they think they're alone. So to bring back to your point, like, guys, if this is how you feel, everybody feels like this. Everybody feels like this. Nobody's got their stuff together. And it makes me really sad because people keep themselves small and they stay stuck and they stay unhappy and they think they have to just accept that because they feel like there's no other choices. And as you and I know, the reality is it's actually easier to do something that you're passionate about. It's easier and you have more energy. So you're not going to burn out because you're not working against yourself. So I love that. And I just heard all those messages so many times. So I think as well, sometimes a workplace or the people that we surround ourselves with can feed into the imposter syndrome. And I've had this experience with clients as well who, and you probably can speak into this, being in boardrooms and things. As a woman, you kind of have to double down. You have to really develop a thick skin. You get the eye roll. And we're conditioned like that. And then we internalize that message and make it mean something about us. And then that feeds our imposter syndrome to, I obviously don't know what I'm doing. And these are the messages that I'm getting. So, you know, I don't know like what your view is on that, but I'm just like, this is why I feel it's so powerful to have this conversation, for us to be out here going, you know, it is okay to ask for what you want. It is actually not just okay, it is
necessary.
Thank you. It's necessary to go after what you want and ask for what you want. And feeling like you're not quite sure, you don't have everything together is actually normal. And feeling uncomfortable is normal. And it's actually something to be excited about because it means you're growing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to say permission to offend.
Yeah. Go for it.
Sharon knows when I say this, she's like, oh crap, what's going to come out?
Oh no.
Okay, I'm going to give a home truth here, right? As a woman, I'm going to speak to the women out there. I can't speak to men because I'm not one, so I don't truly understand what goes on. I can guess and I can say it's probably similar, but I'm going to speak really truthfully to women that are watching. And permission to offend. If you're offended by this, okay, I'm okay with that, right? Because it means that it's touching something within you.
Yeah.
Hear the message behind this. As women, we are not being true to ourselves, right? We try to fit into what has been created as a male driven, and I'm not talking about men as in the entity of a man, but the masculine energy of the doing and the hustling and the being and trying to be something that we're not. For what? We do not have to be that way. And until you're true to yourself and what you want, you're selling yourself out. And I think women need to really hear that is imposter syndrome is going to come. Number one, when you're not true to yourself because you don't know who you are. And number two, when you're not being honest with what you want. I did not want to be in a boardroom with that masculine driven energy. I didn't know that. Why? Because we're conditioned. You're taught that you do this to get that.
Yeah.
So you go to college to get a degree so that you can be in that boardroom because that's the logical, obvious approach. If it doesn't feel good to you, it is not for you. It is not for you. So imposter syndrome, yes, it is all of what we're talking about. And it's also, are you selling yourself out from who you actually are? And if you are, oh my God, stop it now. And if you don't know what it is that you want, okay, start digging. Ask somebody to support you on that. Don't keep going down the same rabbit hole just because you think there's no other options. I did it 3 times.
Yeah.
Until I was in a company where they were so beautifully gorgeous, like a warm hug, that if I'm still unhappy, that's not a them issue. That is all on me.
Yeah.
And what it boiled down to was I didn't believe in myself. And as a single parent, I had this whole thing of not being good enough to step out there and create what I want because I was holding a lot of shame and guilt. So if you're not going after what you want, and if you're sitting in a situation where you're uncomfortable, you are selling yourself out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And also what I want to say is that oftentimes everybody has a degree of, you're saying as a single parent, you felt one way. And also as a working mother, I felt exactly like that I had to give my all because I had to perform at the standard of people who didn't have children or weren't mothers. I had to be in the boardroom. I had to deliver. I had to have that masculine energy. And then, so I was pushing myself and doubling down in the workplace. And then when I came home, because my children were so important to me, I was doubling down and pushing myself. And the most shocking thing for me is all my doubling down wasn't worth anything because, as you're saying, I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't aligned. I felt burnt out. I felt stressed. I don't believe I was present in either place. I mean, on paper, exceptional at my job. I mean, all the feedback was I was exceptional at my job and really good. I pushed really hard. And now I go, at what cost? And as a parent on paper, my kids were well dressed, well fed, educated. They had everything they need. But now when I look at the emotion and the underneath and the other things, and the space to breathe, I'm like, oh my goodness, when I had my wake up call was like, this is no way to live. This can't be a life. Yeah. And I feel it's unfortunate that we don't have the conversation until almost it's too late, or we don't give ourselves permission to go after what we want until we crash and burn, or there's serious illness, or, there's a bereavement or something. And we have that moment where we go, life is passing me by one way or the other, and I get to choose how I spend my days. And that's also why I'm passionate about having these conversations, because I didn't realize I was doing it. Nobody was having the conversations. Even when I burnt out, I had to burn out to give myself permission to rest, because the GP said, game over, Sharon. I went, okay, well, the GP said it, so I'm not letting anybody down here, because he's told me physically I'm not capable. And it's a lot of work to come back from that. And I just feel it's so important to have the conversation. So perhaps people will recognize the signs and going, I'm doing that. I'm on a hamster wheel. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to stop. I remember going, I'm afraid to let one ball drop, everything will fall apart. I remember the therapist saying, what does that mean, Sharon? And I was like, literally everything is going to crash and burn. And when I think of that now, that's why this conversation is brilliant, because I have less stress now. You know, I probably work more hours, but I have less stress and I feel better. My relationship with my children is better and I'm more fulfilled. So it excites me rather than draining me. Or I suppose this will land with you, living my life based on what other people's expectation is or what other people think success looks like, because people would have thought I all my you know what together and running everything smoothly, and inside I was drowning and dying. And I think as I saw my children get older, I thought, you know, because when they're little, you're so absorbed in that. And when they were little, I thought, when they're older, this is what my life will look like. And then they got older in front of my eyes. And one day I looked and went, now they're older, my life still looks the same. I'm still exhausted, overwhelmed, burnt out. And that was the wake up call for me, along with crashing and burning. But that's why, you know, you can measure it when you see your children getting older, and then you're suddenly shocked. So the time goes by, and that was my wake up call, you know, to go, oh, hang on a second. When is it my turn? When is it my turn? When does it get to my part? And then I went, well, that's up to me, isn't it? You know, what you're speaking about was up to me to go. So it's not about external, it's about me going, yeah, I'm not happy. This is not working for me.
Yeah. And the relationship with yourself is the most important one. If you think you're masking it, you're delusional. You're absolutely lying to yourself.
Yeah.
It isn't, because it's manifesting, it's appearing in one way or another. Either you're going down, you're trying to people please with everybody, or you're like me, which is an absolute need to be in control. And what control really looks like is it's very manipulative and it's uncomfortable, it's cold, it's a lot of anger in it because there's so much judgment, right? If you go down the people pleasing route, you're terrified. Like, you're terrified that somebody is going to judge you. You're terrified that you're going to do wrong. So if your relationship with yourself isn't good, you are not masking it, because how you are doing things in one part of your life is how you're doing them in them all.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying there about the kids, I personally would not want to have been a stay-at-home mom. I love working. I wanted more time with my child. I didn't get that. I can't take back that time. And I think women need to actually wise up to that. If it is a case that you want to be able to spend more time with your child, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, there is other options. Stop telling yourself that there's not.
Yeah.
There are other options. And we only get one life. Do it the way you want to do it, not the way other bloody people are telling you how to do it. If I could go back, I would be doing my business the way I am now, back then with Leah.
Yeah.
Leah's now almost 22.
Yeah.
Like, she was 18 when all of this started to come together. That's insane. 18 years of her life I spent burning myself out repeatedly. And what did I get for it? Okay.
Yeah.
Our house. Yeah. We live very far away from our family and our friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I think, and you're probably going, okay, how does this fit into imposter syndrome? But like, if you're not clear on who you are and what you want, what kind of life are you really creating for yourself?
Oh, that totally.
When the kids are growing up, or even if you choose not to have kids, right?
Yeah.
Or if you can't have kids, what's going to happen then when that journey is coming to an end, whatever that looks like for you?
Yeah.
What do you do then? Because whatever you're creating, or whatever stage you're in your life, you're creating it.
Yeah. And that
perfect time.
That resonates with me as well, because I stayed at home for a brief time when the girls were young, and I was like, this is not me. So, you know, and then I have a sister who is at home. She has 4 children, and she's like, this is me. I love this. I choose this. This is what I want. And I work with women who have the guilt that I have, and they can't quite marry it, as you were saying. So I felt like I was pulled and dragged because I wanted to work. I thrived at work. I really enjoyed my work, and I adored my children. And I understood that me being a stay-at-home mom was not going to be beneficial to them or to me. But it's about finding the balance. It's not about trying to put on the hats that other people lay out for you. It's about me saying, this is important and this is important. And I agree with you. If I could, my daughter's now almost 21 and almost 19. And so it's 3 years, that I've been recreating a life and creating something different. And that would be the one thing I realized I wasn't fully present with them. And perhaps I gave my all to my work. And there was a consequence to that because I wasn't present. I wasn't fun. I wasn't relaxed. How could I be? Because I was like, lunches, school books, this parent teacher meeting, this. So I hear what you're saying. It's not about you having children, not having children, not wanting to, or whatever. It's about how you create your life from the inside out. And this is something I particularly love, from the inside out, that you go, how do I feel? Because I know when I burnt out, I realized I was out of integrity. I was out of alignment. I wasn't being honest with myself or the people around me. And that takes courage to go, I'm BSing myself and everybody else, and this has to stop. It's not a straightforward thing to do because we're so conditioned. So I agree with you. You kind of, as you would say, get still with yourself and see what is it I really want. But we're so caught up in, there's so much pressure on us, men and women and young people, and there's so much technology that we get distracted and we don't ever go, well, what do you really want?
No, let's be honest. What we say is, I'm too busy. I don't have the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we say. So it's not,
Yeah.
And being too busy is trying to avoid. It's just pure avoidance. For anyone that's I'm too busy, you are avoiding something.
Yeah.
And there's no point in saying anything else. I was queen avoider. I did not want to talk about what was going on or, all of that. So I just removed myself continuously situations and went to find ones that allowed me to be busy and to be completely disconnected. So you're not too busy. If something is important to you, make it a priority. Like, if you can make stuff and work a priority, you're hell bent on being sure you can make yourself a priority. The same way, if you can make your children a priority, you can make you a priority. Stop avoiding you, because.
But it's the people pleasing. It's the people pleasing, Joanna. It's the conditioning. So it was the external, oh, heaven forbid somebody thinks this, heaven forbid somebody thinks that. It's crazy to me now, but I totally get it. It's the people pleasing. It's the looking good, codependency, whatever, all of the fun things that afterwards you go, yeah, and it's avoidance. And for me, it wasn't so much I don't have the time. I created the time. I don't have the money. And I hear this all the time. Either I don't have the time or I don't have the money. And every single time, the person who doesn't have the time always has the money because they're working themselves into the ground. And the other way is true as well. They don't have the money because they're not prioritizing themselves. And that was me. I was like working, running. I don't have the money. Oh my goodness, I couldn't spend that on myself. Oh my goodness. And yet, if it was for one of my children,
Oh, you do it in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely. So I hear you. Absolutely. It's either time or money every single time. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. And you will find it because you will crash and burn. And it will become then so important to you that you have no other alternative.
Yeah.
And that's living in pain, so.
Yeah. And I think, John, for anybody that's listening or that's going to your workshop, like, this isn't about being critical of yourself. It's actually just being aware and being curious, because it takes a lot of courage to go down this deeply to it. But I do think the harsh truths are needed to be able to shift past it. It's to actually have that mirror up in your face to go, this really isn't working for me. Like, it's just not working for me. I'm like, even say the words, I'm embarrassed to say this, but this is how I feel, or this is what I want, or I feel guilty saying this, but this is what I want. Whatever it is, just speak it out, because if you don't start to speak it out, it's never going to happen. And you're never going to start to release those yucky feelings that you have attached to it. And that is the start of it, is going, well, what do I want? And we get to create nicer working environments when people start to speak this stuff out, because everybody who is in a work environment was a child at one point with dreams and hopes and aspirations.
Yeah.
They don't get to die just because you've stepped into a corporate world, but we've created those environments and we've allowed them to continue. And it's going to take time to change this, of course, but it does start with you being honest with you and saying, okay, today I choose me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the start of me changing everything. I choose me. And I love Brene Brown speaks about this, about shame. She speaks about how, and it's the shame that keeps us hiding. The feeling like we're imposters, feeling like we're failing at everything, that nothing is going right. And we feel, as you're saying, just speak it out, because we feel ashamed. We feel like we judge ourselves and we feel others may judge us. And in fact, I find the opposite is true. When somebody opens their mouth and says, I feel like I'm failing at everything, or I feel like I need support, or I don't know what I'm doing, my experience is people rally and people go, oh my goodness, this is somebody that we love who gets to have our support. But I feel most times we feel ashamed and we feel like we're imposters and we're failing and there's something wrong with us. So I love that you bring up with the judgment piece, because we internalize the criticism and we make it mean something about us, and then we don't want to say it in case we're perceived as being, you know, other or different or failing. So yeah, I love that. Okay, Joanne. So as always,
This could go on and on, to be fair.
this like, we could make episodes after episodes of this. So
City, I'm telling you. And all the examples that we could give, this literally could go on.
Yeah.
For hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, because it's it's a topic that has to be talked about all the time, right?
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time. And I feel like we get to pick this up somewhere in a week or two, perhaps around burnout, self-worth, you know, all the stuff that you and I love to bounce around and chat about. So thank you so much. Fun stuff. Thank you. I appreciate you. See you later.